Hello.
And we have with us Rosie and Victoria, who are two of the co-leads from Piscopia. So thank you for coming on, guys. It's really lovely to have you.
Mm.
So should we maybe start with Rosie? Do you want to start? And we can talk a little bit about your background and um, like what your PhD is. So yeah.
Cool. But we
Um,
should just go ahead.
yeah, so tell us just what university you're at maybe and yeah, what do you do?
So I'm at the University of Birmingham. I'm in my fourth year, just starting of my PhD. So I'm in the last 6 months at the minute, which is terrifying. And time is going too fast. But I'm in applied maths, and more specifically, I do endocrinological models, which is hormone models.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, I'm basically trying to create models that will allow us to test different dosing regimes for drug treatment for patients, to try and eliminate the amount of testing you have to do on a patient of editing their
Okay.
dosing method, for people with adrenal insufficiency. So that is people that don't produce enough cortisol, which is one of your steroid hormones. So that's kind of what I do. But I do an awful lot of maths. It sounds very pop biology, but it's a lot of maths because I also do stuff on identifiability, which is whether the models that you're using can, you come up with models and you're trying to fit to data and you've got model parameters, and can you, theoretically, if you had all the data that you could have, can you theoretically uniquely identify your parameters, or could there be multiple sets of parameter solutions that give you the same best results? So I do that. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like quite like a specific sort of like topic. Like what made you like choose that particular one? Or was it anything that
I
drew
just
you to
kind
it?
of fell into it, I guess.
Yeah.
I did very different things. So I did my undergrad in Exeter, um, and all along I was thinking, oh, I love pure maths, really like this.
Hmm.
I'm gonna carry on doing this. And then I finished it and came home, and I was like, what am I going to do now? And then I applied for a master's in Birmingham, which is near where I lived, and they only did an applied maths master's. So
Oh,
I was like, I
really?
guess I'll do applied then. And then so that switched me into applied. So then all my modules had to be applied. And then I actually did my master's in bubble dynamics, which was very different. But in that, I did, it was about how a bubble changes when it's coated in something. So how the dynamics of it being crushed or expanding change with a coated layer. But with that, something that it's used for is drug delivery, so targeted drug delivery. So the idea is that you coat bubbles in like a drug, and then you inject them into somebody, and then you use ultrasound where you want to deliver that drug, and it's like much better targeted therapy. And
Wow.
so I kind of swayed loads of my master's project to the applications and all the interesting stuff in the biology of it. And so that kind of took me into biology. And then I did well in a module, and I spoke to one of the lecturers and was like, hey. And then he was like,
Nice.
oh, I've got a subject you can do. And it was kind of unrelated again, but now I'm in hormones.
Yeah.
Oh.
And you never look back to pure mathematics since going to Birmingham or no.
To be honest, not really. I look at it now and I'm like, I dread it.
Do
Yeah.
you collaborate with biologists at all as part of your PhD?
Yeah, so I'm in a group called SMQB, which is Systems Modelling for Quantitative Biomedicine. And that's based in the med school here in Birmingham.
Okay.
And so that's kind of, we collaborate with clinicians and even as far as patients. So this isn't directly because of me, but it's something that they did. They hosted a workshop that was getting together patients, mathematicians, and clinicians all together, so you could speak to people right at the other end. And that was really good. I mean, there weren't people with adrenal insufficiency in particular, but I spoke to like people with diabetes and other deficiencies, and it was really interesting hearing their perspective, because you're sitting there like just making up stuff about how it's going to affect people, and then you see them and they're like, yeah, no, this is horrible. Like, to live with this condition, and I'm like, oh yeah, well, hopefully I can help one day. But that's really good. So yes, I do work with the med school people quite a lot, which is good fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, I spend most of my time in the maths building.
Yeah. So what was it that, as you say, like you kind of fell into your PhD topic, but what was it that made you sort of want to choose to do a PhD in the first place? Was that something you always knew that you wanted to do from undergrad, or?
So I kind of had like a pie in the sky ambition when I was like 5, that I wanted to be a lecturer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I've kind of gone off that idea and come back to it. So when I was doing my undergrad, I was like, everyone here is really clever, like no way, I'm not going to be able to do it. And like that's why I didn't have anything lined up at the end of my undergrad. I just assumed like that would be it. And then I got to the end and I was like, well, what am I going to do now? I don't really want to do anything else. So I did a panic masters.
Okay, nice.
And because I had been looking at PhDs, and a lot of them said, you know, a master's is desirable, it's not necessary, but I thought, well, I've got no idea what to do here, so like applying to a master's is very similar to applying to an undergrad. Like you're still part of a cohort and it still seems like school. And so I did that, and yeah, I guess I got kind of found. I was just doing well at a module, and then my supervisor asked me what I was doing next year, and I was like, I don't know, give me something to do. And so yeah, I just kind of fell into it, and now I'm like, oh, maybe the lecturer thing will happen.
But maybe 5-year-old Rosie was like, right, after all.
Yeah. Well, like I definitely wanted to do teaching for sure, and like when I was doing my A levels, all of my A level teachers had a degree, so I was like, well, I'm going to have to get a degree, and maybe I'll just teach A level. And I convinced myself at that point that that's the age that people start to care about what they're learning. But I've since realised that's not necessarily true, because a lot of people still just are doing A levels to do A levels. Maybe they care at uni. I like to think people care what they've chosen by the time they get to uni. But yeah.
Oh, well, lovely.
Yeah,
it's been
so
nice to hear about you. Yeah. So how about Victoria? What about you?
I'm just starting my 3rd year in a PhD in combinatorics at St Andrews. And before that, I did my undergrad also in St Andrews, but then I took a gap year because I wasn't really sure what to do. And it was during COVID as well, so it made a lot of sense. And I did some tutoring while applying for PhDs, and then I was very happy that I was able to come back and to actually do a PhD, because I hadn't Rosie been sure that I would be able to. So yeah, that was very nice. And the bit of combinatorics I'm looking at is well quasi order for posets of different abstract structures, like equivalence relations. So it's related to kind of decidability questions and slightly on the computer science side, but it's very definitely not computer science, is what I like to think. Yeah.
Sorry, Henry, can you just turn it off a little bit, please? You're just a little bit quiet then, Victoria.
Oh, sorry.
That's on our end. Yeah. We still heard.
Yeah.
I can be a bit louder as well, if that helps.
A little bit louder. Yeah. Okay, we'll try that.
Yeah.
So you're still at the University of St Andrews. You stayed there for your PhD even after taking a year out. I take it you like it there.
Yes, I really like the department and the town as well, because I grew up in the country, so for me not being in a city uni was quite important, but that's also really restrictive in the UK. So it's nice to be in a small town, and the department's also quite small, So you have a feeling that you recognise a lot of people, which is really nice.
Homely.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, and I think we find that here, like even though we're in a city, it's a small city, and it's quite nice to have a department where it's like we do feel like everybody's kind of like it's homely and it's friendly and yeah, definitely a draw to go back to a place. So was the PhD opportunity, was it something that was there sort of waiting for you, or did you have like an academic in mind that you want to work with and a topic, or is it similar to Rosie in the sense that you just fell into it?
It did really fall into it, I think. I was very undecided on what topic I was looking for. So I was contacting people for like groups, semi-groups, combinatorics, which is what I've ended up doing. And I think I initially contacted my current supervisor because he does both semi-groups and combinatorics. And like on his website, he'd explain that in a way that kind of appealed to me, I guess. And so that kind of hit two boxes. I think I was trying to have my cake and eat it. And so when I spoke with him, he said that he would be happy to supervise in either area, so I could kind of read around and make a decision a bit later in the process. So I started my PhD not really sure which of the two areas I'd be in.
Oh, wow.
And it also made a lot of sense because my master's project was in semi-group theory, so one of these two areas. And that was on decidability questions in semi-groups, and now I'm doing decidability questions in combinatorics. So there were links, and it made sense on the application why I would be applying to work with him, I think. But I'd never been taught by him, so I was quite lucky, I think, like applying to work with someone I hadn't been lectured by. That turned out well. Not that it wouldn't if you were applying to other places, but it was a bit of a weird choice for me, having been to St Andrews, not to pick someone I'd already at least spoken to.
Yeah, so like going into like a PhD where you're not like entirely sure like precisely what it's going to be, like was that like I don't know, like I kind of went in like okay, this is like my like optimization problem I'll be thinking about, pretty a bit more like oh, there's far more like vagueness to it, like yeah, like how do you find that?
I think more like having done more reading earlier would have probably been a good idea, just for like that sense of stability going into it. But I knew that both areas seemed nice, which was reassuring. And I had an idea, like within each area, kind of the sorts of things we might be looking at. But yeah, I think deciding earlier would have probably been a more stable choice. And like you have to decide at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also, I guess like when you make that decision, like you're never going to know a lot if it's like before you start your PhD or after 6 months. Like you still don't know a lot either way. So kind of might as well have been sooner.
Yeah, I think it's probably quite a bold statement for anybody to say that they really know what they're doing at any point in their PhDs.
Yeah.
I still don't know.
So yeah. But it's good that, like you say, your supervisor sort of gave you that flexibility to kind of discover for yourself which area you wanted to focus on. So
yeah, that felt really, really lucky. And like I think it's made the PhD a better experience and definitely helped me to like focus on the research because I'm interested in it. So it's been a positive thing that he did there as well.
Yeah, brilliant.
Lovely.
Well, it's been nice to get to know a little bit about you both individually. But as we said, Rosie and Victoria are both co-leads for the Piscopia initiative. So we're very, very lucky to have you on the stream today, and we want to talk, sort of focus our sort of, I suppose, our discussion a little bit more towards that and get you both involved with talking about Piscopia and answering some questions and hopefully sort of sort of having some interesting discussions. So I mean,
I'll admit I don't know that much about Piscopia. Like I've heard like things through you, but you know, kind of just tell me and everyone else what is Piscopia.
So Scopia started up in 2019, so just before the pandemic, and there were, I think it was 3 students in Edinburgh that wanted to deal with this kind of gap that you see as you go from like A level up to a professor. the drop off of women and non-binary people in mathematics. And you kind of see at undergrad that it's about maybe 40% at good end. But then by the time you get to professor, it's more like 6 to 10%. And so just like we wanted to, I mean, I wasn't part of it then. I came in 2 years later. But we kind of wanted to support the women that are doing PhDs right now, and create a community for them, and then also try and encourage more undergrads to take on further study in maths and related disciplines. I think that's kind of our main things. Victoria, I don't know whether you want to add anything to that.
Yes, like the main way we do that is through events at like we've got about 15 local committees plus national events like Pi Forum that was mentioned before. And then we have monthly seminars on the national side as well to kind of highlight role models and just like, I guess, celebrate like what everyone's doing and show all the amazing work that's being done by women and non-binary researchers. And it also gives like a platform for students to come and ask questions if they're wondering about doing a PhD in like a friendly and supportive environment.
So, as you said, it's now expanded all across the country. But how many did it just started off at one university was that University of Edinburgh? Yeah.
I think
yeah. So. You might know more than me, Victoria, to be honest.
I don't know. So I know it started in Edinburgh, and then I think they went Scotland wide at the end of the year, and then UK wide in the following September. But that's about as much as I know.
Yeah, so kind of each year we kind of have a drop off and maybe a gain of different committees depending on the PhD students that are there. So the difficulty that we have is that, you know, you're there for 3 years and then 3 or 4 years and then you move on. And so we might have lost a couple of committees but gained them elsewhere, or somebody pops up and says, oh, I want to keep this one going. And so it's kind of stayed at a stable 15 committees, but they've been different committees over the last year.
Okay. Yeah.
But we're gaining a few this year. I think we're gaining maybe about 3 or 4 since Pi Forum.
Yeah. And you're always looking for new committees, right? So if anybody is watching and you're at a university that doesn't have a Piscopia committee, am I correct in saying that you're just more than welcome to get in touch and start one up?
Definitely. And even if you don't want the commitment of being a committee and having to do a lot of stuff, we try and get like at least a contact at each uni as well. So even if they're not organising events, we can email them and say, can you distribute this promotional stuff for us? So we've got that at quite a lot of unis. I think one of our main aims this year is to try and branch out from unis that we already have to local ones around them. So like Birmingham has 4 universities. And so having events that invite the other local ones would be really great. So that's one of our goals for this year.
Nice.
Yeah.
Also on that topic, even if you're at a uni where there is a committee, like we always need more people, and like many hands make light work, and we can do so much more with more people. So like whether you're like an undergrad or a master's student or a PhD student or a postdoc, like if you're interested, like just to get in touch, because we'd like love to have everyone.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that you said about, I don't think I'd quite appreciated that one of the primary aims was really just to create a community for existing like women and non-binary PhD students. I guess it's recruitment is always like a good thing to be doing and encouraging more people to think about a PhD. But I think it is nice knowing that you have got that sort of what is now a nationwide community. So do you think like do you think you've started to notice like a little bit of a difference in your time at Piscopia in terms of the number of women kind of attending events and sort of taking up a PhD at your universities?
I mean, I definitely think it's fluctuated. It's hard to like tell on like just 1 year, because it could just be a bad year, I guess. I definitely think that, so when you say at the site you didn't realise that it was a community, I mean, that's something we want to push because just totally lost my train of thought. Because a lot of the issues that put people off doing a PhD are the same issues that put you off doing a postdoc at the end of your PhD.
Mhm.
And so, like, creating that support network once you're in is just as important as trying to lure you in.
Sure.
Um,
Yeah.
We don't want to just like attract people with false promises.
Mhm.
We're trying to make the atmosphere nicer as well once you are in. Because the issue isn't just the jump from undergrad to PhD, it's also PhD to postdoc, and it's
Mhm.
post 5 years, or every level. So yeah, we're trying to reach up as well, so that we've got, if you think we're like the big sister to the undergrads, we want like somebody up to help us
Okay.
Mhm.
beyond. So to create a bit of a like family tree down the hallway.
Yeah.
So what sort of like stuff do you do to sort of like help like foster that kind of like, like network, like environment? Like what sort of like events and what have you do you run, for example?
Well, something we've started doing at St Andrews is having like just monthly, we call them coffee and chat event, and they were inspired by the Edinburgh Committee, where we just book a room and we get some tea, coffee, free snacks, and invite the women and non-binary undergrads and PhD students to come and just chat and network. And that's been, well, the last one we had was really quite successful. It was nice to see the undergrads talking to the PhD students and PhD students supporting each other. And then it means that it's not all on the committee to do the work, because the community is kind of helping itself, which I think is quite important.
Yeah, quite like
Yeah, we do
self-sustaining.
something similar here. We also have a coffee morning, but it's weekly. And so during term time, we had different members of staff coming in and chatting about how they got to where they are. And that was kind of to break down sort of that barrier of going up to an office door and knocking and asking. And so it gave a few of the undergrads an opportunity to meet a member of staff without having to like make that first step, and hear about some of the stuff they do. It was particularly useful for people who are maybe choosing their master's project, and also kind of keen beans. So we adopted a lot of the people that do summer projects, because they're here throughout the summer, no one else is here, and they maybe don't know anyone else. And so we had quite a few people come along then, and that was really useful for them, I think, just to have some friends during the summer. And it was nice for us as well, because it's really dead around campus and all this. I mean, I hate it when the undergrads come back, but it's
Yeah.
also a bit too quiet.
Yeah. I do kind of find the interaction between like undergrads and like lecturers like kind of interesting. Because he's like at least at my university at Bath, like I would never think of like actually approaching like a lecturer in some like social capacity. They always seem to be so like untouchable and like knowledgeable. So I think like events like that kind of sort of stuff where you like break down that barrier would definitely be like really useful to everyone.
Yeah, it really we're kind of like mythbusters, I guess, because we're also trying to debunk the fact that like people think that PhD students are geniuses, and I definitely don't think I'm a genius. But I when I was looking at like the PGTAs in my lectures, I'd be like, oh, they must be so clever. They must know everything. And now I rock up and teach undergrads, and I'm like, I definitely do not know everything. I've got the answers. That's why I seem like I know everything. But yeah, I definitely think people just think that the level above them is so unattainable, but it isn't.
Yeah. Which I think it's nice that I guess our sort of aims overlap a little bit, which is what we're trying to do the same thing, like you say, like Mythbusters, or like we say that we're trying to demystify like the world of academia. And I think again, yeah, just showing even like lecturers some like that everybody has their moments of like actually, yeah, like what's two plus two, and that's completely normal. yeah, I think it's really good to, like you say, bridge the gap between student and academic. Just because it's not something that you naturally get, I think, as an undergrad. And especially with women, I think because again, I did my undergrad at Birmingham, as you know, Rosie.
Mhm.
So we overlapped in my final in I think yeah. So you were
Yeah, in your
doing your
final year.
master's year when I was in third year. Yeah,
Yeah, I just joined as you were just leaving.
yeah.
Crazy.
So, but I think in my second year at Birmingham, I think the majority of my lecturers were actually female,
Really?
or I had like a good proportion of them, and it's sort of unfortunate that kind of happens in second year, and yet all of my first year lecturers were men.
Okay.
So it's sort of this, I guess it just depends on who ends up teaching which modules. But for me, then that was the point at which it was like, actually, no, there's suddenly quite a lot of female representation at lecturer level. And that was quite nice to see. And that was the point at which I maybe started when you go to office hours or you sort of go to their tutorials and you do get to know them a little bit more personally, which is quite nice. But yeah. Mm.
Yeah, definitely. I think that like maybe it's a bit of a prejudice of mine, but equally when I was an undergrad, I went to a couple of office hours, but predominantly I went to my female lecturers.
Yeah.
And I guess it's just looking for who looks like you. So yeah, seeing that representation is really important. I think Victoria said something to me the other day about how you don't actually necessarily notice. I mean, certainly when I was at Exeter, I did not have that many female lecturers, and you don't necessarily consciously notice that you're not seeing it until you start to see it. And like until you see lots of women, you don't notice that they weren't there. So like my undergrad cohort seemed really well mixed. And it wasn't until I actually kind of started thinking about applying to PhDs that I was like, where are all the women?
Yeah. So you each told us a little bit about what you do in terms of like local committees. But what does Piscopia do sort of as an initiative on the whole? What kind of things happen quite regularly?
Victoria, do you want to talk about Piworks?
I was thinking, yeah, so I'm at the moment organising our PyWorks seminars, which are once a month, and they're on Zoom, but we try to run them hybrid at one of our universities where there's a local committee if we can. And we get women and non-binary researchers from postdocs up to come and talk primarily about their research, but also they kind of share a bit about their academic journeys and give advice or encouragement for people watching who might be considering further study. And sometimes if they've had experience in industry, they'll talk a bit about that as well. And we'll just like open the floor at the end for questions. So those are like, well, I think they're really important because they're highlighting the role models and kind of making the most of the role models that we've got, kind of sharing one person's talk all across the country. And also it gives undergrads a chance to find out a bit more about what research looks like and what options are out there, and also just to ask questions in hopefully what's a supportive environment that you don't necessarily always have easily available in your institution. Like I'm sure if people like I found when I was applying, once I started asking people about PhDs, then it felt like all these kind of doors opened and people were happy to talk about it. But I had this huge block about like starting to ask. So hopefully we're trying to like reduce that block and make it easier, like Rosie said before, to have a platform where you can find out about this sort of thing. So yeah, that's PyWorks. And then we also have PyForum, which I feel like Rosie should talk.
So PyForum is our annual event, and so we had our latest one last Thursday, which was our biggest one so far. So in 2020 we hosted one online, and that was just when we were starting out. And then last year, so what year are we in now? 2022, we had one up in Scotland, and I went to that, and that was before I was a co-lead. And I got hooked in, and they said, "Do you want to be a co-lead?" And I said, "Sure." Little did I know that it would result in me organising the third PyForum at Birmingham this year. which took over my life. It was so much work, but it was so much fun. And so we had 60 people. Actually, just this afternoon, I've uploaded our blog. So anything I don't mention, read our blog and you'll find out more. That's on our website. So we had talks, we had posters, we had a workshop on like the challenges that women and non-binary people face in academia. We had a careers panel discussion. We had mindful spirograph, which was led by my sister. And that was a little social thing at the end. So if you don't know what spirograph is, it's like the little thing where you have a cog and you put your pen in it and it makes like flowery shapes.
Oh, okay.
And you colour it in and learn a bit about the mathematics behind that. So what else did we do? Yeah, we had so many talks. We had 26 talks in a day. We had 15 posters, and we had a lot of fun. And it was a mix of we had undergraduates all the way up to postdoc, and it was really nice. We had some really nice feedback about it. But yeah, it's basically I kind of pitched it a bit as it allowed sort of first years or even undergrads to give their first talk to a friendly audience, and be able to get some feedback and make some friends. So yeah, we had quite a few talks from undergrads, and all the feedback was like, "I'm so glad this was my first talk," which is really great. And even just like the posters, just having that friendly audience to do it for the first time. And I hate public speaking, so I know how scary it was. So yeah, if there had been a scopia when I was doing my first talk and I'd known about it, I would have taken it up. But yeah, it was really good. We had little knitted Highland cows that go on chocolate oranges as the prizes that I knitted. But yeah, but we also had you guys there doing a vlog.
Yeah.
So that's the promotion for us, little crossover. So that was really nice. But we had people from all over, actually. We had somebody from the University of California, Santa Barbara.
Really?
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know how it reached them, but they came. I think they are from the UK, so they were staying at home. But I was still, when they registered, I was like, "Who is this?" But yeah, we had people from all over. So it was really nice, and it was really good to meet our committee in person because we meet them all online. But bringing everyone together for just one day is really great. I don't know whether I've forgotten anything. I just kind of rambled on there.
No, I mean, personally, like as an attendee, and like you say, we kind of came and terrorized people with a camera a little bit, but hopefully for very good reason. But I think it was just so lovely. Like it was a jam-packed day. Like I think it's probably one of the busiest conferences I've been to, but maybe that just because it felt like everybody really was kind of buzzing to be there and getting involved. And I think you're right, like something that I sort of appreciated that hasn't been done at any conferences was because I brought my poster along. So and then at the end of the day, you'd obviously had judges for the poster competition, but you gave us each pieces of feedback.
Oh, really?
So that I'm assuming that you'd asked the judges to fill out feedback for the posters. And that's sort of something that you don't always necessarily get at bigger conferences. Like you might get little pieces of information, like when you talk to people, if they say, "Oh, I really like your color scheme," or like, "This is really clear," and like, "I've really enjoyed reading it." But it was nice to have that written feedback to sort of take away. And it's just little things like that that made it just feel like more personal, more inclusive, which was really nice. So yeah.
Yeah, we wanted to pitch it as almost like a mock conference because and a lot of the judges, I think actually only one of the judges was a lecturer. The rest were kind of postdoc and some PhD. But I thought that was kind of good because I think if you can explain it to a PhD student, you've pitched it right. Like if you're pitching it to a professor, then you're losing like 90% of your audience. So yeah, I thought that was quite good. Yeah, but no, definitely too busy a day. And the hope is that next year we're going to extend it to 2 or 3 days, to be honest, especially when people are coming from afar. Yeah, it definitely needs to be longer. But now we have the justification that we just had so much interest. So it'll have to be bigger.
Yeah.
So if someone was like interested in like hearing out for the next Pi Forum, like where should they like go for like information?
Follow all our socials.
Yeah.
Don't worry, you'll hear about it. If I'm still breathing, you'll hear about it next year. I mean, I'm going to be hopefully doing some sort of postdoc by then, but I'm still definitely going to be involved in Scopia. So I think we've had a volunteer from Newcastle for it to be hosted up there next year. But yeah, we'll have to watch this space. The date, I mean, we host it at the beginning of September because we wanted to catch people before the start of the year. And also for a lot of undergrads, we like certainly master students, we wanted them to be able to present their master's project at that point. And so, yeah, a lot of people couldn't come because it's kind of the only time people take holiday. But I don't know, I quite like the date. I think we'll keep it in September, probably maybe later. But then because of the term dates across the whole of the UK, if you do it at the end of September, then like the top half of the country has already started term and probably wouldn't come in the first week of term. So yeah, watch this space basically. Go on our website, Instagram, Twitter, X, and LinkedIn. Who knew? We're actually really popular on LinkedIn.
Also, like, we have a mailing list. So if you're a bit like me and not very good on the social media, then you can find that on the website and you'll hear about it also that way.
Yes, that thing too.
Yeah, just all the socials.
Yeah.
Socials, the website, the mailing list. Yes, yeah, pinned out. No, but like I think I was really pleasantly surprised at how many undergrads there were at Pi Forum. Like as you say, it shows that it's sort of reaching the right people. And as it's great that you've had the feedback from them saying that it was a really sort of wonderful environment to give their first talk. And I think as an undergrad, it was always like a talk, giving a presentation or a talk was always a piece of assessment. So I think it's still, even now, I'm still struggling with, like, it's still built into me that it's like I'm being judged and I'm being assessed on this. So it's nice to sort of have conferences like Pi Forum where you do just break down those barriers and it's all kind of friendly. And like you said, there weren't really any academics there to sort of feel embarrassed around. It was just like, yeah, people at your level, which was nice.
Yeah, it's definitely a good practice run to have. So on the blog, I made a word cloud. I went right back to like year 8 and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna make a word cloud. So in our feedback we asked what do you think you've like gained from the day? And big in the middle is confidence, which is what we wanted. So like half of people said they feel more confident. So yeah, it's really great.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, so you mentioned you obviously have like social media accounts, but there are certain sort of certain highlights that you have on your Instagram. You run a Mathematician of the Month scheme. I'm right, aren't I? Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool.
That's a relatively recent thing that you've started?
Yeah, when did it start? We're on our 4th. So yeah. I can't count back months. I think we started in June.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, we set it up because with the PyWorks seminar, this is great. I love the PyWorks seminar, but also we were trying to do something that highlighted role models without making too much work for them. And so this is kind of a way of, we just get a bit of advice from them, just like a paragraph of what they would tell younger people, and we celebrate a recent achievement that they've made. And it's kind of a double whammy that it's like, well done you, but it also allows us to say to our following, look what they did, like look at this achievement that they did, maybe you could do that. So we kind of are trying to pick people at every level So our first one started with a student here. So she did a summer project and she came to our coffee morning, and she ended up getting a Martingale scholarship. So that pays for your master's and your PhD in one of their institutions. And actually, they've just extended out the number of institutions that you can do it at. So I think they've added Manchester and Bristol now. So I think there's like 7 different unis that are partnered with them. And yeah, that's kind of like a vaguely it's an attainable goal for an undergrad. Because a lot of like the celebration of women mathematicians is like the top level, which seems really far away. And so we're trying to celebrate the little wins that make up a career, and let people know about them, because I hadn't heard of it before she told me about it.
No, me neither.
And so yeah, just letting people know about these different opportunities, all these scholarship things. Like, if you don't have a family that's in academia, I feel like you probably don't know until you go looking for it. You just don't see it, and you don't know that that help is out there. So yeah, she got that, and then since then we've had a professor who got, what's it called, some prize with the LMS. It's Professor Eva Miranda. She's on our blog. And at the Hardy lectureship she got. And then who else have we had? We've had people getting their PhDs. So somebody that came to Pi Forum, actually, Elsa Robertson, she's about to start a PhD in Amsterdam. And then Lindsay is our latest one, and she's just finished a postdoc scheme, and she's just got like an open-ended lectureship. So it's about celebrating all the way up.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it's little work for them.
Yeah,
So,
but lovely way to, like you say, highlight the little wins at like lots of different stages, like celebrate the people, but also highlight the opportunities that are out there. Because I don't think I've heard of most of the opportunities that you've sort of just mentioned. So it's a great way to talk about those.
Yeah, so for anyone listening, if you want to nominate somebody, then I'm happy to hear them, because the first few I've just kind of picked people that I've heard that have had a recent award, and I've had a couple of people suggested. So yeah, please do get in touch and nominate somebody that's had sort of a recent success, but it doesn't have to be a huge success. Could be, they've finished their master's project and they got a first in it.
Yeah,
so
that's lovely. Okay, so you say on these, the mathematicians of the month, you ask them to give some pieces of advice. So what would you both give if you had to give a piece of advice to either undergrads or to yourself, like from 5 years ago, say? What would your advice be to people who are maybe like a little bit unsure about whether they want to do a PhD or not?
I would say
Pi Forum.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
Go to Pi Forum and you'll be convinced. Go on, Victoria, you say your advice and I'll think of something serious.
I would say something I kind of should have done more is, rather than just going, oh, I probably can't do that, so actually look into it. So like, try applying for summer research projects, or ask your lecturers if they would be able to supervise a research project, or like talk to PhD students, like just kind of go for it. Because the sooner you start, the sooner you can kind of start thinking, this does seem something like that I enjoy and that I could do. And then kind of, just generally go into the application process more confident and make that decision earlier that you would like to apply, if that's something you want to do. And then also you'd find out if it's not something you want to do, and then you can look at other things if that's the case. Just don't like dither. Just go for it.
Yeah, I would also say that, I mean, certainly for women and any underrepresented gender, there should be an EDI committee of staff, so equality, diversity and inclusion, at every university. And if you don't necessarily have a supervisor that you feel you could approach, and you're maybe on the fence and thinking about it, then find out who that member of staff is and you can ask them. I mean, it's kind of guaranteed that they're going to be a welcoming member of staff that will know about these different opportunities, and know about there are certain scholarships out there that are trying to encourage women and non-binary people, and so they might know those opportunities, and so asking those people, because it is daunting asking somebody that you don't necessarily feel like you know very well, but yeah, also if your university are hosting things with PhD students, definitely go. I think that's the best way to get to know what's going on at that uni, basically. Like the PhD students will tell you the truth about it, and it's usually like, yeah, it's fine, just go for it.
Like if
but
you
yeah,
catch us on a bad day, we definitely won't sugarcoat it.
Not at all.
Well, yeah, exactly. But they also can, say, well, talk to this lecturer. This person knows who you should ask. So yeah, definitely just ask. I didn't ask. I was too nervous. I was too shy about it, and I should have just got on with it. Just sent someone an email, because everybody that you ask, as soon as you ask them, they want to help you. And all of a sudden, like, all of your answers are there. So you just have to say hello. You don't even have to like ask a fully formed question. You can just be like, I'm maybe interested in this. What information do you have? So you don't have to have it all in your head sorted out.
Yeah. Okay.
Or you can just like ask to have a conversation. Sorry to like jump in. Like you don't have to say, "Will you supervise me?" Just like go in with, "Can you tell me about the process?" Something like this. Can I talk to your PhD students?
Yeah, and I think more often than not, sometimes when you approach that person that, yeah, maybe they're on your EDI committee, but they haven't lectured you or you haven't spoke to them, you might actually find that you quite like them and their research. And I think it's just, again, getting to know new academics and just, like you say, asking the question, and maybe serendipity will take hold and you'll find your future supervisor. But it doesn't need to be with them in mind or anything. It's just getting to know more people in the department, right?
Yeah, I definitely think the key thing is keeping an open mind about things, about where you're going to be, about who you're going to be with, and about what subject you're doing. Like, there's not just one topic that's going to be perfect for you. There's multiple ways that you could do it. And I was really nervous about switching uni between undergrad and masters, and it was fine. Like, it was scary for a week or two. And then it kind of just feels like a previous uni. And now I've been here longer than my first uni, and I thought Exeter was like the best thing since sliced bread. And so, yeah, I think it's definitely important to keep an open mind about what you're going to do, because people might suggest stuff and you're like, maybe, but you should just be like, yeah, maybe.
Yeah. So like regarding these like mathematicians of the month, you say like if you have someone else in mind, you can nominate them, but can you like nominate yourself as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
sure.
So I feel like, a lot of people like they don't really have that sort of like self-acknowledgement. I have actually done something good. I have done like I've made a goal.
Yeah.
No, definitely. I'd be happy to hear from people that just have something to say, and yeah, definitely, sure.
Okay. Right. So I think that's probably a good place for a break. So we'll take 5 minutes. Don't go anywhere, because we'll be right back and we'll be talking more about the scopia. So yeah, we'll see you shortly. Welcome back. So yeah, we
So both of you are like of course involved in Scopia. I just want to know like how did you actually like find out about Scopia in the first place? Maybe Rosie, do you want to go first?
Yeah, so Scopia reached out to Birmingham, to members of staff here, so our EDI committee here, and said, we'd like to start a committee. Do you think there'd be much interest? And that got sent around to staff, and then my supervisor emailed me and said, I think you'd be interested in this. Big mistake. And I was like, sure. And so I started up the committee here for a year or two. Yeah, kind of like a year and a half. And then at the start of my third year, the other co-leads asked if I wanted to help with nationwide stuff. Another mistake. And so now I've been part of it. I do all sorts. I started up Mathematician of the Month. I organised a lot for Pi Forum because it was here. And each of us maintain a kind of like the contact for a few of the committees. So we're all kind of looking out for new committees, but we are the point of contact for like 4 or so each.
Okay.
And so we keep in contact with them, help them organise any events that they need. That's kind of what I do. A lot of social media stuff and thinking of new ideas.
Yeah. And Victoria?
So I heard about scopia just when it was going Scotland wide. I think I was about to finish, or I just finished my masters, and so I was like, didn't have much to do, but I got an email from the maths president that was like sent to everyone, which was a forwarded email from Pastropia saying they were holding an online PhD information event. It was over the summer and it was during COVID, so it was like I think only about 6 of us turned up, but they talked a lot about the gender imbalance, which I just hadn't really heard of or thought of very much before, and like how that might be kind of affecting me, I guess. And also they said things like you don't have to be a genius to do a PhD, and you don't have to already be a researcher. Like becoming a researcher is kind of what the point of the PhD is. So that gave me a lot more confidence at that point. And it also felt like just things I'd needed to hear. And so when they did the first Pi Forum a few months later, I went along to that. And that was kind of like an applications boot camp. So there was a lot on deciding if you want to do a PhD and how to write a personal statement and this sort of thing. And there was a huge amount of interest after that. So they were asking, like, can we expand? And who wants to be involved in the expansion? And so I got involved with the St Andrews Committee at that point. There were just 2 of us. And I'd graduated, so it was a bit weird me being there, but I still had my St Andrews email. So I just like sneakily carried on being there. And usually, I don't think people minded. No one told me to like stop doing it. So that was fine. And then I kept doing that through the first year of my PhD. And I think, so almost exactly a year ago now, I joined the co-leads as well. So I knew Gemma from previously, and she'd seen that I was like, I think, keen on the St Andrews front and thought maybe I'd be interested in doing the nationwide stuff, which, yeah, I definitely was. So what happened then? So my main role on the nationwide side is looking after the PyWork seminars. So that's kind of keeping that rolling over monthly and looking for speakers. And we're always looking for like speaker suggestions as well. So I feel like we just like say all these things like action points for anyone who's interested. But like if you can recommend anyone, we always like love to hear new people, especially like it's quite difficult trying to keep it representative of all different research areas when you only really hear about your own research area. So like I only really know about combinatoric speakers or people that are in St Andrews. So yeah, diversity is important, and we appreciate if like people can help us achieve that. And then as Rosie said, it's looking after a few of the local communities as like a point of contact as well.
Yeah. And you've both said that you're both like a co-leads of Scopia. Like how many like co-leads are there? Like, is it just 2? Is that what co means? Just 2, or is there?
There is 4.
It's just more than 1.
Yeah.
So there's 4 of us. Although it's 4 of us now. So we've got Gemma as well, Gemma Crow, who was a co-lead. She's been a co-lead for 2 years, and she's just finishing up now from being a co-lead. She's still going to be involved, but she's in the last year of her PhD, and so she's concentrating on that, like I should be. And we've also got Chell. So Gemma is at Heriot Watt, and Chell is at University of Edinburgh. And so we all head up our own committee, and then we also do other things. So Gemma is she's always been boss of like emails and contacts and funding, and she sorts all that out for us, all the admin. And then Chell does a lot of our socials. She keeps on top of our X Twitter thing. Yeah, and she does a lot of stuff in Edinburgh, I believe. I think they do a lot of like sports socials. So yeah, 4 of us, but we're now swapping one out and gaining somebody new called Anastasia. So we're meeting her next week to find out more about her. So we'll still be 4.
Yeah, brilliant. And you think that works quite nicely as a team? Like you manage to sort of distribute jobs quite evenly, and yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's okay. I think the difficulty I certainly found with Pi Forum is because I was the only person at Birmingham. It was quite difficult because a lot of the tasks just needed to be done by somebody at Birmingham, like ordering the food and like booking the rooms and all those sort of bits that just needed somebody there. So that's why next year with Newcastle, they've got 2 members there. So they can have all our help, but there's still 2 of them there to distribute the jobs there. And so I definitely think we'll need, when organising events somewhere, you definitely need 2 people to share the load. So there's difficulty in that. But in terms of our nationwide online things, it's quite good to share the load. I mean, Victoria does a stellar job of organising the fireworks. I just occasionally throw a name at her and I'm like, yeah, have them. But yeah, I think we do all right.
Yeah. I think we also have this thing in Scopia where it's very much like the PhDs have to come first. Otherwise, like, kind of what's the point in doing this? So it tends to be kind of flexible. Like if someone has a really busy, I don't know, few weeks or they're away or something, like we can work around that. And like having 4 of us all doing different things is helpful for that because usually someone's free. Like usually most of us are free, I suppose.
Yeah, we don't.
Yeah,
I
just
don't think we have particularly assigned roles apart from Victoria really being boss of Pieworks. We all kind of muscle in. Like we've all got like a shared email. If an email comes in, just whoever sees it first deals with it. Yeah, sometimes I just reply even though they've said hi, Gemma. It's like
Just
from
confuse
Rosie.
them. It's like Simon from Rosie, and then like Victoria, you can reply to the next one.
Just to keep them guessing.
Yeah.
But yeah, we do share the load.
Yeah. So it's something you mentioned, Pi Forum again. Something that I did want to talk about from Pi Forum was one of the workshops that we did there. So I think I just found this really interesting, and you got us all. We were all sat on tables you made sure that we were mixed, so we were sitting with people that we didn't really know. And the discussion topic was around like ingressive versus congressive personality types. Is that right? Yeah.
What do those words mean?
What do they mean? So we can either see how much I remember, or
I think we should.
That'll be fun.
Okay, so I think, am I right in saying that the idea behind it is like, rather than kind of differentiating based on binary gender, it's sort of you kind of look more at like what type of person you are.
Okay.
And so ingressive was a little bit more that you focus on, you like to achieve things maybe independently, and you're very sort of like highly focused on doing things a certain way and like problem solving, whereas congressive was a little bit more collaborative and kind of enjoying the creativity of the process, and that sort of thing. Is that right? Yeah.
Yes, so it came from a book by Eugenia Cheng, called X plus Y, and yeah, it's exactly that. It's trying to put sort of types on things rather than saying man or woman. And so I kind of, in the working world, and certainly in STEM, I think the kind of issue is that we reward ingressive traits. And so, certainly in maths, like you get the best grades and it's very independent, you do it on your own. Whereas there's a lot of good things that come out of collaborative work, and other subjects may reward that more, which is why they end up being female dominated and why STEM ends up being male dominated. And it's actually the way we test rather than people's ability. So it's just the way we're measuring success. So yeah, I mean, everybody did a quiz during that workshop that you didn't know which traits were which. I mean, you could probably guess afterwards which one's which. But the point is that nobody is all ingressive or all congressive. Maybe one person is. But I think I came out as like almost bang in the middle, like totally neutral. And yeah, I don't know what you came out as, Victoria. Were you neutral as well?
Yeah, I was like a tiny bit congressive.
Yeah. So congressive things are things like looking for connections in things and liking to get other people's opinions on how you do things, things like that. And then specific to maths, it was sort of I knew I was good at maths because I did well on tests, versus like I like the problem solving creative aspect of maths. So yeah, I think the old fashioned idea is that men are more aggressive and women are more congressive, but I don't think that's very accurate. Um, but it's putting names on things. So I think I remember hearing somebody suggest that maybe we shouldn't, when you've got like a panel of interviewers, that maybe we shouldn't be like, you need to have a woman on the panel. Maybe what's more important is that you have a mix of congressive and ingressive interviewers.
Interesting.
And that would actually be more representative, potentially. So
Because
that's kind
I
of the
guess
idea.
it's like what you value sort of the most for yourself or for other people. So I came out, I think again, the way that you'd scored it, it was like you could basically go from minus 24 would have been like the most ingressive to like plus 24 was the most congressive.
Okay.
So I think I got like minus 6.
Okay.
So I was like more ingressive, but still very neutral, like on the grand scheme of things. But yeah, I think it's more indicative to see that kind of sliding scale rather than having like, no, you're either one thing or the other. Yeah, but I think again we had some really great discussions at my table. I really enjoyed it as a workshop just because we were thinking a little bit more about how we could then change, like how you could change academia as like a way, like get, like you say, having a mixture of people on an interview panel that are not necessarily done on like sort of gender diversity, but ingressive or congressive. And we said, unfortunately, like you say, sitting exams rewards ingressive personality types. And I don't know if have you managed to have a look at like some of the scribbles that we all wrote down during the workshop yet, or
I haven't managed to look through them totally yet, I'm afraid. I've been doing a lot of like sorting out the money, basically. I should have looked at them. But yeah, one of the discussion headers we did was talking about how congressive and ingressive traits and this how can which traits you are affect confidence. And I think that's one of the important things, especially when you think of traits like valuing other people's opinion more than your own potentially. And that might be how you see other people, like looking at others and what they're achieving and comparing that too harshly to what you're achieving. And I definitely think that's something that comes into play when you're doing a PhD, because you're just all doing such different things. It's like impossible to compare, but you do it anyway. And I'm like, oh, so and so's got a paper out, and this other person's gone to 3 conferences in the last 2 months, and I'm just sitting here scribbling away. So yeah, I think it does come into things. And yeah, I think I'm going to have a look through some of people's solutions. And the idea was to kind of steer us and what we want to then do, because we have quite a unique position. Like invited to sort of workshops and discussions being hosted by institutions and places like the LMS. And being able to talk to those people and saying, this is what students are saying, this is what they think, these are their suggestions, and seeing whether that can actually be put into place somewhere.
I think one of the interesting things that came up at my table was about, again, how you work well with like how you work with other people depending on where they lie on the scale. So I think I said at the time, I was like, I want my supervisors to take this test. Like the
Yeah.
little quiz sheet that you gave us, I was like, they need to do it so I know how to like manage them better.
Sure.
But I
Yeah,
think
I think
again,
everyone should do it.
yeah, it was really interesting. So it was a great way of like, I suppose just thinking of like thinking differently. Yeah.
Yeah. When you say like handling people differently, like, what are some like examples of that?
I guess like if you know that people you're working with are more on the congressive side, then you know that they value your opinions and they like sort of collaborating and that sort of
Sure.
thing. But so maybe you can like then lean more in towards
Hmm.
focusing on that. Whereas if they're ingressive, it might be then harder to work with them sometimes if they're a little bit more focused on
Okay.
their own way of doing things. I don't know.
Mm.
But yeah, it was really interesting. So
Mm.
yeah. Mm.
Nice.
Yeah. So, is that going to make it onto the website at any point?
Yeah, I was just trying to hunt it down. Hang on, I've got it here. Have I? I've got it somewhere. I was trying to remember what the questions were. All I remember is like an independent or interdependent something.
Yeah.
No,
Sure.
I
I
have
can't get
mine
it.
at home somewhere, so like I've held on to it, but it's just not with me. I should have brought it in. We could test you next time,
Just,
Seb.
oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah, no, we can definitely put it up on the website. But it's not a diagnostic test in any way.
Disclaimer.
We're not responsible for any of the outcomes of doing the test and any arguments that may come about from it. But yeah, I think if somebody else looked at my test, they'd probably be like, "You're not that."
Yeah. Yeah. I think that was sometimes when again, maybe that's more of a reflection on you as a person, depending on what you say about yourself rather than, yeah. But so speaking of the website, what other sort of resources are available on there for people that are either looking at getting involved in Piscopia or like looking at doing a PhD?
Oh, thank you for asking, because I have a little something here to show you. So I have brought a prop. I don't know whether you see that. You see that the right way
Yeah,
around.
perfectly.
So this is a booklet that we made at the University of Birmingham, but it's been checked by various people at different universities, and it seems to be vaguely representative of the PhD application process at most universities in the UK. And it's a booklet that has different chapters that kind of take you through each step of the application process, featuring these little pictures that my sister drew. My other sister, not the one that came to Pi Forum. So my sister Meg drew these. They're all on the back. Yeah, it's got how to decide, and it's got kind of pages on it. I mean, we have printed copies here at UAB, and I think Victoria, have you just had some printed in St Andrews?
We need funding first, but we're looking into it.
Okay, so we hopefully want to get these printed elsewhere so that people can distribute them, because you can like write your ideas as you're going through. And in the last year, we've branched out, and we've got 2 new chapters. So this is our second version of the booklet. So we've got a new chapter on finding your own funding. So that was written by one of our St Andrews committee, Laura. And then we also reached out to 2 students in the US who told us how the application process varies there, which is very varied. And so we've got general advice for people doing that. And something we want to add in is somebody applying from elsewhere to here, because we've got kind of going out, but we want the
Sure.
reverse going in. So that's available digitally on our website.
Fantastic.
If you're near Birmingham, I have copies
Take a copy.
at any of our events, and I've given a few to various people that have taken some home with them at different universities. But yeah, check it out if you are looking at applying, or you know somebody that is. It's basically just a combination of all of our answers to people's questions at different sections. So loads of advice, and it's not meant to be exhaustive. It's meant to be kind of like a starting point, and it's got links to things that you should check out at each stage. So, yeah.
Really useful.
In terms of other resources, that's our main one. But we've got all our previous seminar PowerPoints up on the website. So anybody that gives a PyWorks seminar, their slides are available, and quite a lot of them have got a slide that talks about some PhD advice. So they've usually got a last slide that talks about that. Yeah, you can see all the information of our different committees, and most of them have got an email address to contact them. Yeah, we've got our blog, but that's basically just our social media is our blog. And yeah, try to keep it as up to date as possible.
So there's also, I think, did you make I don't know what you call them, like guides for how to give a talk and how to make a poster? I don't know like what platform they were on.
Yeah, so that's on Instagram and on our blog. So that's something that I kind of do the formatting, but somebody else writes them for me. So one of our committee members, Neve, I give her a title. So I do little votes of what people want to hear about. And then she puts together some stuff, and then I make it look pretty using Canva, which I love. And so we've done, pro tips on how to make an academic. Did we do an academic poster? I think we did. Giving a talk.
I remember looking at it for making a poster.
Okay, we have done making a poster, and our next one I think is dealing with imposter syndrome. But that's going to be in sort of the next 2 weeks, I hope. But Neve's been on holiday, so I'm waiting for her to come back. But yeah, I'm always open to suggestions for that, and I'm trying to put a Taylor Swift theme on all of them.
I was going to say, didn't you have a Taylor Swift one?
What does that mean? Have a Taylor Swift theme?
It was, the first one was it was writing it was something about in the words of Taylor Swift. It was doing a poster in the words of Taylor Swift, and it was like different quotes from Taylor Swift songs. But it's because we kept talking about leaving blank space, and I kept thinking of Taylor Swift, so I was like, I'm gonna have to work this theme in now. And then the second one, I foolishly missed a perfect pun because I was talking about writing a talk and tailoring to your audience, and I didn't put tailor in, and somebody called me out on it, and I was like, I was fuming. And so the next one we do, I've got to try and get Taylor Swift in there somehow.
Nice.
People are going to think I'm a real Taylor Swift fan. I didn't even get tickets. I didn't even try.
Oh, phenomenal.
Okay. So I mean, I think, is there anything else you guys would like to say? Maybe just, it'd be nice to hear a little bit about what Piscopia has meant to you, and like sort of for yourselves, like what have you got out of it, and how it's kind of helped you along your PhD journey, and sort of how it will help you in the future.
That's a really good question. I think initially I was just so happy that there was so many people wanting to get involved and encourage each other and kind of really tackle the participation crisis. And like, it's lovely that the way to do that is just by supporting community and making friends. Yeah, so I think definitely supporting me through the PhD applications. Like, I wish the booklets had been available then. That would have been amazing. But even without it, like, it was still really good hearing about people's experiences and just learning about how to apply for PhDs in a way that was kind of more accessible to me. And now I guess it's kind of just trying to keep it going and help as many people as possible through this, and just tackle the problem head on and see where we can get to.
Really lovely.
Yeah.
What have I got out of it? I have really enjoyed it. It's eaten up a lot of my time, but in a good way. Like, I love doing it. But yeah, it's been a really good part of my PhD. So I started my PhD in the midst of the pandemic. So my first year was entirely online, which was sad. And yeah, I think finding Piscopia and being a part of this community, albeit online, has been really great. Yeah, and I feel like meeting everyone at Pi Forum the other day was like the culmination of all of it coming together. So that was really great. It's taught me how to use Canva. It's
I also learned how to use Canva over the course of the last sort of 6 months. So yeah.
It also lets me just like post on social media without having to worry about like being cringe on my own account. It just allows me to be cringe, which I really like. Yeah, I've made loads of friends out of it, which I think is probably the main thing. I think in my year group, I'm like the only woman that comes into the office that I see. And so just being able to reach out to some others and being like, oh, this happened. Somebody thought I was a marketing student, and somebody says, yeah. I mean, that didn't happen to me. That happened to somebody else. But I was like, oh, yeah. So it's just being able to complain to other people and them saying, yeah, that's shit. So not that it's all shit, but sometimes you just got to have a moan. So yeah, I think that's probably I feel like I need to end it on like a uplifting note. Friendship.
Yeah.
Friendship has been the main thing.
And like
especially the co-leads.
Just forming a network, like you say, like I feel like now I have connections at so many other universities that even if I didn't meet some of the other committees at Pi Forum last week, or I've never spoke to them in person, I do kind of feel like I could just reach out, and it's like knowing that people are going to be there for you. Like it's sort of that, like you say, that confidence to reach out, and just that sort of supportive environment is that Piscopia has created is really nice. So yeah.
The shyness doesn't go away when you get a PhD. I think that's like I'm still just as nervous about reaching out. So knowing that there's people on the other end that want to tell me about things is great.
Yeah, I think that's probably a nice place to end. But it's been lovely chatting to you and finding about Piscopia and your work with it, because you're both doing such an amazing job, and it's a really great initiative. So I think it's important to sort of showcase it and highlight the fantastic things that you're doing. So yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for
joining us.
If people,
thank you for having us on.
Any final shout outs if people want to find out more? I think the social media links are in that direction. There we go. Yeah. Well, any final things for you guys?
Follow us on all our social medias. I think somewhere down the line, you and us are going to do a joint giveaway, maybe. When we reach a certain amount of followers. So watch out for that. There will be a knitted yak available. So probably in time for Christmas. But yeah, just follow us everywhere. Join our mailing list. Tell everybody about us. That's our biggest. That's the main way we've reached people, is simply by word of mouth. So when you see somebody joining, say, have you heard about this? But yeah.
That's lovely.
Victoria, anything else you want to add?
I mean, I feel like Rosie's kind of said all the main things.
Said everything there is to say.
I think just on the PhD front, something I didn't say before was what my supervisor says is it's about finding out if maths is good for you, not if you are good for maths. So it just as like changes the emphasis. But
that's a really lovely
thank you so
final
much for
sentiment to end on. So yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much again, guys.